Florida State. Just too potent yesterday for Wake Forest. At Wake Forest now, final score Florida State 41, Wake Forest 16. There's a lot to take away from this game. Yes, it was a blowout. Yes, Florida State handled business how they're supposed to handle business, but this was a spot now where you could have very easily seen a letdown from Florida State. Didn't see that. Didn't see that by any stretch of the imagination. Also, what they have on this roster, we talked about it a lot in the offseason, but to go from paper to the field, that's a very difficult thing to transition to. And it's not that we never had, not that we ever had doubts about the Florida State roster. I just think it's a testament to the way that they have operated and not missed a beat with all the portal additions they have, and the way that Jordan Travis is absolutely balling right now. Deserves some very real Heisman buzz. I think Florida State has earned, in every sense of the word, some very real college football playoff buzz. We're going to talk about this game right now, but first things first, make sure you're subscribed right here. Florida State fans, had a lot of y'all join the party here recently. Had a lot of y'all be subscribed to the channel. Met a lot of y'all in Clemson. And that was phenomenal to see y'all on the field after that overtime victory. If you have not yet subscribed, we're going to talk a lot about your Noles. You got a lot to play for. You have a lot in front of you. We're going to track it all the way to the very end, so make sure you're subscribed right here so you don't miss a minute of what we got going on right here on the On3 YouTube channel, on this show, The Hard Count. Great way to stay up with everything here. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at JD Piquel. As I was saying, Florida State now, this was a spot where you hadn't really seen a letdown to where it was a meltdown for Florida State. And what I mean by that is you had seen them kind of just battle week in and week out and never really have a spot where, what's the best way? I'll rephrase that. Florida State has had a lot of tough games. Clemson, overtime. Boston College, close game down to the wire. Duke, you're down at half, got to get off the ropes. It was kind of this thing for Florida State where you're like, okay, hey, at what point in time are we going to see Florida State kind of run out of gas? Was a question a lot of people had. Now, it doesn't mean it has to happen, but I do think there's a very real possibility for that to happen across the college football landscape when you play the way that Florida State has played and been in the games that Florida State has been in. This was a game on the road, Wake Forest. The brand and the logo isn't really something that gets you overwhelmingly excited if you're Florida State. Your roster is superior. The roster ended up being what it was supposed to be yesterday against Wake Forest. But I'm just saying, for Florida State not to take their eye off the ball, I think it says a lot about where they're at internally, their focus internally. And I'm not saying they won't have any other close games the rest of the year, but I think to handle business the way that you handle business if you're Florida State, you got to feel good about that and feel good about the focus of this team. That's a mature football team now. Number one returning production in the country. You add in some portal guys, and everyone seems to be on the same page and have laser focus on what the mission is. Credit to Mike Norvell. Credit to that locker room. It's not an easy thing to get everybody all synced up, especially when you bring in some new guys into the fold in some really key positions. One of those key new guys, Keon Coleman, man. I think he is one of the best wide receivers in college football. That's not saying a lot. I think there's a very real argument for him to be the best wide receiver in college football, right up there with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think at this point, whoever you want to roll with, whoever is your guy in that conversation, I have a hard time making a difficult case against it. Keon Coleman, yet again, cutting highlight play after highlight play yesterday against Wake Forest. And what I want to focus on with this wide receiving core and these pass catchers for Florida State, the way that Jordan Travis is operating, and the multitude of weapons that Florida State has. When you have that quantity of weapons, it makes it very difficult for a defense to give the proper amount of attention to every single weapon. So there's a reason why Keon Coleman isn't getting the double coverage that he should get nearly every single play, because you have to account for Jaheim Bell, because you have to account for the other pass catchers in that room. And so what I think that means for Florida State, yes, you want to see the run game kind of pick up a little bit. We'll talk about that here in a second. But if you have a matchup every single week that you can exploit to the nth degree, take away the every single week. If you have a matchup you can exploit in any given game, that gives you a chance. If I want Keon Coleman one-on-one, the Marvin Harrison Jr. game against Georgia is a great example. That can be the difference maker for you. I think that would have been the difference maker last year for Ohio State should he have stayed healthy. He didn't. It's all woulda, shoulda, coulda. But that same formula applies to what Florida State does. If I have Keon Coleman going one-on-one against your guy and we're winning that consistently and Jordan Travis is slinging the ball like he did yesterday, over 300 yards yet again, we're in good shape. And again, we will have a chance in every single game that we play. Now, the key for that now, and I think the thing that takes this whole thing to the next level, when that run game finds its stride and I think it can. It's a matter of will it. That's going to take everything to new heights. Because at that point now, you have another stressor on that defense. And I think it's kind of a version of what we've talked about with LSU last year. We knew they could run the ball. It was a question of, will they push the ball deep? For Florida State, we always knew they could push the ball deep. It's a question of, can they run the ball now to keep that secondary even more honest? And then everything's going to just, I think, go to the dogs here for Florida State in the most positive way, because I don't know how you defend them offensively when that happens. Defensively, I don't know if there's a ton to take away from yesterday. You feel good that you did what you did against Wake Forest in that kind of awkward, slow mesh. Got a good push and were able to wreak havoc there, how you probably should wreak havoc. Same song, second verse. Handle business. Don't have a letdown. Do what you do. Again, the run game, I think, is the key to kind of just lighting this whole thing on fire and having this whole thing explode in the most positive way. So, it feels like this is a mature team. Feels like this is a tough team. And it feels like, again, this roster, the way that they're built, they're trending towards, I think, playing their best ball in November. I think Florida State fans probably feel the same way. I think their best game's still out there. Now, when that happens, I don't know. You're definitely going to need it against Miami, against Florida. Like those rivalry games, you better bring your A game. We're all on the same page there. But I think the maturity of this team is going to position that roster to play their best ball when it's time. Now, you still got to win the ACC. You still got to handle business the rest of the way. But right now, Florida State just continuing to check boxes week in and week out. Keon Coleman continues to make highlight reel play after highlight reel play, and Jordan Travis just continues to do his job and operate this offense like an orchestra, and he's the conductor. They're rolling right now. Florida State, too potent, too many weapons, too versatile. Once that run game gets going. Again, I'll just leave you with that. When the run game gets going, look out. Make sure you subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at JD Piquel. Hey, we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.